Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And I'm just going to record today, like right after my meeting, because it was such a feel-good meeting. And I seem to do better in the mornings. My head seems to be a little less. If I record right after my AA meeting and before I actually start like taking my dogs out and starting my day, my head seems to be in a really good, like low symptom place. So it's easier for me to think clearer. So I've been trying to do it a little more often, but time sometimes doesn't permit. Sometimes the pooches have to go out and do their doo-doos like right away after my meeting. Anyway, the meeting today, we were talking about, we read from our Spiritual Awakenings book, and the story was Why God Says No. And and it really brought up a lot of thoughts that resonated with me today, especially after the experience I had yesterday going to the Live for Lane walk. So what I was thinking about, just, the topic is kind of self-explanatory. It's like we we stop drinking, we start really diving into the program, practicing the steps, practicing the principles in all of our affairs, and feeling like, for me, it was like, I think I was in my first year and I was driving home from work one evening and I felt like, you know what? I'm just tired. I'm tired of doing all of this. I'm tired of working so hard to live a better life. Um, of course, it didn't take long for me to realize that I work harder at living a dishonest life or a life that doesn't have any opportunity. And that would be the life that I experienced when I was drinking, hiding my drinking all the time. It was harder to do that. It's a lot easier to live sober. But when I was making that transition from living my drunk life to living my sober life, it feels exhausting sometimes. It feels exhausting to like get this compulsion or urge to drink and then fighting it. That's what I would have translated as back then, was fighting it. Today I look back at those times and think it wasn't a fight. It was more a choice. And it was hard to do things that I didn't want to do. It seemed harder to not satisfy my urge. It's like what I saw it as back then was, if I'm thirsty, I should have water. Well, it wasn't water, it was alcohol. And the repercussions of that are much more difficult to deal with, obviously. But it's like, also, we around Halloween every year, my husband starts buying a bag of candy every time he goes grocery shopping. It's a thing. It's a tradition here. And before it starts happening, he does it, I think it's as soon as the candy starts coming out. And every year the candy comes out earlier and earlier at the grocery store. And So it's like having that candy there and wanting a Kit Kat and not letting myself have it. That feels hard to me. And that's what it felt like back then. It was like difficult to do what I should do the next right thing. There you go. It's more difficult, it feels like, to do the next right thing than to just satisfy whatever it is that I want. Um, I didn't see that the reward was going to come later. I truly did not believe that the good was going to follow. And that's what really came to mind this morning is the good that follows pain. And when when I first stopped drinking, I learned that I needed to rely on this higher power. I didn't have as clear a concept as of my higher power then as I do now. Although I believe that throughout my lifetime, it will continue to become clearer and clearer. That's what I believe. Um, that it's almost like a picture that's being drawn, and uh, throughout the years, more and more details are added. That's what my picture of my higher power is. And I I never imagined that this concept, developing a concept or building a relationship with a higher power, was going to actually remove my compulsion to drink. I thought there was nothing on this planet that was going to remove my compulsion to drink. These people that were in my AA meetings, there's no way that they had as strong of a compulsion to drink as me. There's no way. But as I kept showing up, I heard people say the same things that I would say to articulate how overpowering that compulsion was. And so then I started to believe that, okay, maybe these people really do get it, maybe these people really do know how difficult it is to not satisfy that baffling compulsion to drink. And over time, as I worked the steps, I was introduced to the idea that my higher power is going to do more for me than remove my compulsion to drink. His influence on my life is going to be bigger than not drinking, but also extend to um, everything in my life. I didn't know how that was going to happen. I saw the promises on the wall that say, like, I will know serenity, and my financial burdens were going to slowly disappear. I mean, that's not what the promise says, but that's what I hear, that's what I see. And in early sobriety, it was so easy for me to then compare myself and my hard work to other people. Why is it that I'm working so hard to experience the gifts, the joy of living, when somebody who sits next to me at work or something doesn't have to work this hard, and yet they seem to have it all. They have the money, they have the joy, they have the cars, they have the family, they have the love, they have the friends, they have a higher, they're higher than me at work, and all of these things. I saw people that weren't necessarily living their lives on a spiritual basis, but yet seemed to have more than me, seemed to be enjoying life more, being rewarded more for less work. Like that's not fair, you know? And that would lead me to just feeling tired, feeling frustrated that I have to work so hard and yet I see nothing happening in my life, feeling sorry for myself, being envious of everyone else's comeuppance, as we like to call them in our house. Like, why isn't it happening for me? I'm doing my best to be kind and be helpful and be honest. Like, I'm I'm not holding anything back. I'm not keeping anything to myself. I'm sharing it all with another person. I'm meeting with my sponsor and I'm working the steps. I'm going to meetings. I'm even meeting with people outside of meetings. Um, I'm like trying to live that life that is outlined in the book. And it got to the point where I was feeling um, like I can't be perfect, you know? Well, that's not what, that's one of the sayings in the program is progress, not perfection. Like it's okay to not do it perfectly. But, I'm an overachiever, so I wanted to do everything exactly the way that I figured the more perfect I was at working this program, the quicker my comeuppance would would come. Um, the more joyful my life would be faster. And that's not the way that it works. Yeah, the harder I worked at the program, actually, the more solid my sobriety foundation became. It wasn't that good things happened faster. It was that I was creating a more stable foundation for my life. And what I was doing was giving to my future self. I was building the foundation for my future self. Um, I didn't understand what God's will was. Not that I didn't understand what it was as a output. I didn't understand what it meant, God's will. And and I don't know, well, the way that I see God's will now is that it's not mine. They may cross over paths, they may run even parallel to each other. But God's will, my understanding of it is not satisfying my wants. God's will is doing the next right thing, is doing my best judgment on what the next right thing is. And sometimes that next right thing isn't to benefit me, it's to benefit somebody else. Um, it may be, and this is what I'm learning in this thought today, this process. My thoughts are a process in the morning. I get introduced to an idea and then I think it through. And then that's another thing I like about recording this in the morning is um, I get to really sit down with what I was thinking about in my meeting and think about it afterwards and really process it and have it and apply it, figure out how I'm going to apply it in my life. But what I heard this morning is it may be that the next right thing, God's will, whatever you want to call it based on your beliefs, that the ultimate joy, the ultimate benefit, the ultimate opportunity that I'm going to have in my life hinges on my struggles. It hinges on my pain. Today's disappointment, as the reading says, in 6 months may turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. And I do believe that. I do. I did not believe that a little over a year ago when I had to leave my job. Um, I mean, I know I talk about that a lot, but I could not fathom that walking away from a career that I was just flourishing in and I loved it. It seemed to me like everything had aligned, for me. The mission of the company I was working for was to do the right thing, was fighting for the right thing. And all of my previous career history, it was like the trajectory was exactly lined up to land right where I did, in a way that I was finally working with executives that reminded me of my brother, like the president of the company that I was just at reminded me so much of my brother. I never told him that, but just like a lot of them reminded me of my brother in a lot of different ways, a lot of different qualities. But like my boss also reminded me of my brother in a lot of ways. But also the work, like when I was working with my brother, when my brother was the president of our company or CEO, whatever you want to call him, I got to talk to him about those important things, about what direction the company was going in and how I could support it. Um, and I got to talk to my dad, who was the owner of the company, and about his vision of the company. And that's the opportunity that I got at the job that I was at, most recently, that I got to talk to the owner about his vision. And it was like what I experienced with my family 100% translated over into my last job. And I feel like it really benefited my progress there and my ability to not be so nervous to talk to these people because, they are brothers and dads um, and it just made me feel so much more at home working there. So that's just an example of how I felt like my life was destined to go in that direction. I felt like that was God's plan for me. If there was God's will, that was it. And then all of a sudden, I I had to leave. I had a stroke. I had to leave. I had to walk away from everything. I do think about quite often that every month that I'm away from my career, um, ev- that it's in my past, the more I lose. Okay, let me explain what that means. I feel like if I were to go back into that career, which all signs are pointing to, Rachel, you're not going to be able to do that because your um, deficits and your pain from your stroke are not going to get better. And since that seems to be the case, I will not be able to enter back into my career. And the longer I'm away from it, the more solidified that conclusion becomes for me because I'm losing staying on top of where the industry is going, where um, the marketing profession is going, and that kind of stuff. So I think about that and it starts kind of dragging me down a little bit. But then I remember this, that today's disappointment could be the best thing that ever happened to me. And as I continue to try to look at it that way, then when I'm sitting in my house and I have a choice whether to feel sorry that I don't have that career anymore, or I can go into my what's now called my art studio. I can go in there and do something creative and make something beautiful and new and reimagine the direction my life is going, reimagine the trajectory of my life. Um, I make that choice to do the latter of the two, to go in there and paint a pill bottle. Paint a pill bottle, which I really enjoy. And it really has meaning for me that what what is really unfortunate for me and the leftover scraps from that, this pill bottle, I can turn it into something beautiful. And, I told you that my brother sent me like, I don't know, 50 pill bottles that he ordered and had delivered to me. It was because he enjoyed seeing them. He thought that he liked them and he wants some of them. And that means a lot to me. You all should know by now that I think very highly of my brother. Um, he is really an idol of mine. I mean, I'm sure if and when he hears that, he would shake his head and be like, she clearly doesn't, she clearly doesn't have her aspirations set very high. But it's true. I've watched this dude my whole life and I've always wanted to be like him, which is funny. So when my big brother tells me that he enjoys something that I'm doing or that he's proud of me or that he loves me or something like that, there are very few things in my life that mean more to me. Very few. Um, and I I don't think I've outright told him that before, but it's absolutely true. So back to the topic and less about my brother. Um, when when this AA program first started out, the founders thought it to be a good idea to go out and talk to millionaires, wealthy people, to get contributions for this movement that they were spearheading. Um, and they couldn't raise any money from these wealthy people. And they were probably thinking, why would, it seems like they were a very spiritual and even, very God focused group of men and women. Their wives were very much involved as well. Why would God not bring us together with the wealthy people to drive this movement forward in a more powerful way? Has God forgotten us because we're just a bunch of drunks? In the end, we're just a bunch of drunks. But without having experienced this inability to raise money, they would not have concluded that the organization of Alcoholics Anonymous should be self-supporting and should not be involved in external affairs. And that is a powerful piece of, again, that foundation of what Alcoholics Anonymous is. Just like how when I was starting out my sobriety, working the steps and leaning strongly into the program, but yet not getting a lot of instant rewards from it, that was building that foundation. And I needed that foundation for my future self. I took a note this morning about sometimes we can't see what good comes out of our pain. I heard somebody say that this morning. And and I think that's for two reasons. One is because the pain, the good takes time. It it has taken years for me to continue to build the good. The serenity didn't come after 8 years. The serenity came um, fairly soon after I was working the program really hard, but it wasn't immediate. It wasn't immediate. And I think that that's because more work is to be done. And if I'm rewarded with a little bit of effort, what do I have to drive me to put in more effort? You know, why would I put in more effort if I get the reward with less effort? So I think that delay in our reward for hard work is necessary. For me, it's necessary because I'm not going to work harder for no reason. You know, who is really? There are some people, though, that work hard because they get the joy from working hard. That is not me. I like to be rewarded for my hard work, and and I it seems to be as I look back in my life, I only work as hard as where the reward comes. So that's one reason why I think we can't see the good that come out of some of our pain sometimes, because it's taken a long time for me to see good coming out of my stroke um, in recovery. But I think the also the reason why, and this is what I heard this morning, is because sometimes that good isn't for us. Um, I can be very self-centered. And I think my loving husband, who is not self-centered at all, he's so not self-centered, it's bizarre. He is so good at thinking about other people. I'm almost jealous of it. But like when he's saying, what do you want? What desserts do you want from the store? I'll tell him what I want from the store with no regard to whether he likes it or not. You know, I'm like, but I'm learning to be like, why don't we get this because we both like it? You know, I'm learning how to do that. And I used to be pretty ashamed of that I wasn't, that I needed to learn how to do that. But, you know, some of us are more stubborn than others. Some of us are sicker than others. But also, what I heard this morning was, you know, say, for example, yesterday at the 5K, there were raffles and I didn't win anything. And there are some of us who go to a raffle and we think, I don't ever win anything. I never win anything at a raffle. And one of the people that was with me said to me that she heard another woman say that I never win anything at a raffle. Well, she won two things at the raffle that day, yesterday, and I didn't win anything. And I think to myself, yep, that reaffirms I never win anything at a raffle. Well, if I stop looking inward at the fact that I never win anything at a raffle, what about if I look at the people who won? And that's what I did. I was looking at the people who won. And most of the people who won were young people. And I think that that's really cool. And I think that's where the good was. It wasn't, me winning. That's not what the benefit was. That's not what the plan was. What's good is that these young people showed up to a very important event where we are acknowledging that mental health is is part of our health, and it's not to be ignored. And it's something that we need to stand behind, and we need to communicate and educate. That's what this event was about. It was about honoring somebody who passed um, due to mental health struggles. And these young people came and were told this story. And then at the end, they won a raffle. So this is what I see happening. I see these young people being educated about something that they can stick in their pocket and carry with them for a long time. And they were rewarded for that small effort. That was all they needed to do, was show up and be a conduit for that message. And they were rewarded. There's something magical in that if I look at it that way. So I become very fulfilled myself to watch my what I envision as my God's plan working in other people's lives. So no, for me, the story this morning was called Why God Says No. Well, what I heard today was sometimes when God says no, it's no to me, but it's yes for other people. And it's a great opportunity for me to be in search of who God said yes to. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna think about that today. I'm gonna think about, like, today, who is God saying yes to? It doesn't have to be me all the time. Um, so I think that that's a really feel good place for me to be mentally today. So I'm really grateful that I showed up for myself this morning, that I went to my AA meeting, that I recorded right after that so that I could take this journey through what I heard and what it means for me, and communicating that to you so maybe we can spread around the feel goods today. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.